Welcome to Eagle Harbor's Sustainability Outreach and Education Workshop Series, funded by Prince George's County, Maryland, Department of Environment, under the Stormwater Stewardship Award Program and Chesapeake Bay Trust. Today's workshop, number 6, is presented by Prince George's County Department of Environment. Guest speaker, Carole Barth.
Good evening, everyone. This is our 6th and final workshop. I kind of have mixed feelings about it because there's so much about the environment that I feel that we have not shared with you. And I know that one of the things that you will do is you will go back and review all of our videos, because all of these videos are on YouTube. This one will be on YouTube probably about Saturday, maybe. Because our great team over here is going to work very hard. But you can just go in on YouTube, and Bertha will show you how to get on YouTube. But you can go on YouTube and you can just put in Eagle Harbor Stormwater and it'll pop up. And then there'll be an eagle that you'll see, and you can just click that, and all of the workshops, videos that we've had, 1 through 6, will be there. Now, I'm done with that. I want to introduce you to one of my friends and people that I've worked with for a long time. Carole Barth, and Carole works for the Department of Environment, who is also one of the main sponsors for this whole project. The stormwater fee that you all pay is what has provided the funding for this program that is administered by the Chesapeake Bay Trust. However, Carole Barth is the person that is over all of that. And she is here to tell us about all of the programs that the Department of Environment has for you. So Carole, with that, there you go.
Well, I actually am going to be focusing on the resilience related programs tonight. So right up, let me apologize to our Animal Services Division. I did not bring my slides on them and pet adoptions and our Resource Recovery Division and all the other programs that we have. But I know that you have a sustainability plan here in Eagle Harbor. And I know that you have been working through this program. And so what I thought might be helpful is to give you a little bit of background of what the county's climate plan is about, and then what we can all do as individuals on our own little piece of paradise to really help us become more resilient as communities and as a county. So with that, the Climate Action Plan has been adopted by the County Council, and it also is the subject of a resolution the County Executive passed, requiring a system of committees and organizations to get together to map out how we're going to implement it. It's a very big job. There are a lot of places that have written climate plans, but not everybody has passed them. Not everybody has begun a process of implementation. So, I feel like we have a little bit more reality here. We're kind of deeply engaged in this, not just at the Department of the Environment, because obviously we're not in control of everything. So we're working with other agencies, we're working with citizens, we're working with communities. Now there are 3 types of recommendations in the plan. And the first is what they call operational, which is really just the bureaucratic way of saying, walk your talk, lead by example, changing the way the county does business. The second major category we have is mitigation. That is, what are things that we can change, all of us together, to stop making big messes we've been making. You know, it's the old joke about when you're deep in the hole, first thing to do is to stop shoveling. So, for example, recommendations in that category are things like increasing the percentage of electric vehicles on the roadway, having a charging network that is equitable and available across the county that makes that practical for people. It's just one example. And then action area 3 is what we call adaptation. And that is, what can we do to armor ourselves against the coming storm? I mean, as the weather changes, as these problems, severe weather becomes more common, flooding, downpours, extreme heat, what can we do to lessen the impacts of that on our daily lives? Now, don't worry, I'm not going to be going through like slide after slide, because even I couldn't stay awake for that, right? So we're going to jump into some more meaningful stuff. But I do want to say that while the topic of climate is very serious and very difficult to talk about, the actions that we can take, particularly those that are nature-based, where we make use of the natural properties of the environment that have been impacted by the way our communities have grown and industries that we have and everything else. But when we begin to build those ecological functions back into our environment, it turns out that we get multiple benefits every time. And not only that, but it's actually beautiful. So it's really something that I think everybody can engage with in a way that makes sense for you. So nature-based solutions, we're supporting our pollinator network, we're cooling, providing shade, we're lessening the impacts of nuisance flooding, we're really working on our local food system. All of these things can be done with many of the same techniques. It's not like you have to have 6 different things going on. Once you bring nature back into the equation, all of these benefits kind of flow with it. So this is my one other slide from the plan itself, because this is my personal favorite recommendation, which is no loss of trees. You know, Jackie and I are tree huggers from way back, and we've connected on that immediately. I don't know if you know this, Prince George's County as a whole has a pretty nice tree canopy, depending on which data you're looking at, say 52%, but that's not present everywhere, right? We have areas of the county with very, very low canopy. And in addition to that, we have trees being lost every single day. And I'm sorry to say, but when you look at the Chesapeake Conservancy's analysis of tree canopy in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, we're kind of leading the pack in tree loss. So this is something that it's back to stop digging yourself deeper into the hole. The more trees we lose, the more of these benefits and natural supports that we lose. So we do have a number of programs to help that. But before I go into that, let me say that I did a quick peek at the data for Eagle Harbor, and y'all are doing a pretty good job. All right, you have a pretty steady, even gained a little bit of canopy. But let me urge you to redouble those efforts, because the challenge is trees don't grow overnight. And we need the trees, we kind of need them now. And the lag between when we plant them and when they get to be large and really of the most benefit, that's time we have to wait. So, all right, well, we have a couple programs. We have tree relief. That's a program, Jackie knows well, it's for public areas. So we work a lot with municipalities, with civic associations, with homeowner associations. The trees have to be native, and it's a 50-50 grant, but the 50% match does not have to be any kind of cash money. You promise to take care of the trees for 2 years, you pretty much make your match. So that's a program that can help. You have a lovely river birch out back here, but if you would like to have some more trees, one of the things that I always look for and get excited about is any municipal areas where we could possibly have a cooling grove. Individual trees are great. They provide a lot of benefits. Street trees are great. They provide a lot of benefits, but they kind of only provide the benefits right where they are. If you get a grove of 10 or more trees together, it cools an area. And so you actually feel it as you come into a neighborhood that has something like that. Secondly, we have the rain check rebate program. I'm going to talk more about that a little bit later. That's individuals as well as businesses and nonprofits can take advantage of. And then we also have, Jackie mentioned that this series of programs was funded through a program that Chesapeake Bay Trust manages for us. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that because the next round of grants is open. And you all might like to know that track 2 of these grants has to do with trees. It has to do with outreach, education, maintenance, invasives. So we're looking for projects, and these can be from nonprofits, they can be from municipalities, they can be from churches, associations. We're looking for projects that can help save the trees we have, because we can't make up the lost time, right? And lose the big ones. In particular, we're looking to pilot some ideas for helping people maintain large specimen trees. Sometimes you'll have someone, the tree has been there 50, 60, 70 years. The homeowner has a limited income. They know it's going to take some money to maintain that tree, and maybe they feel like they don't have the money. So then they're tempted maybe to cut it down. We need ways to help support people so that they can keep those trees that are benefiting all of us, because research shows that the larger, and it found out that for every year the tree is alive, even after it's reached what we call full size, it still is growing in mass. Its branches are getting thicker. Like if human beings grew the same way, by the time we're middle age, we would weigh a ton. I'm well on the way myself. But we didn't take account of that. And that's huge, because that means that tree is sequestering a lot more carbon for us. It's cleaning a lot more air. It's absorbing a lot more stormwater. So these trees, these elders, do need our protection and our love. All right. Now, before I go on to another bureaucratic program, it's time for a little quiz. And I think, given where I am, I think we're going to get a lot of right answers for this. Which tree flowers when the shad comes upstream to spawn? I saw boats out here when I was driving. We must have some fishermen somewhere. Anybody know? It's the shad bush. That's how it gets its name, right? Since time immemorial, people have used what we call phenology, looking at when things occur as a way to stay in time with the seasons. Old-timey folks used to say things like, when dogwood leaves are the size of a squirrel's ear, it's time to plant corn. Because things move at the same rate as the season progresses. When the dogwood blooms, the stripers bloom, it's time to go find those wonderful striped bass. All right, a little bit more on the rain check rebate program. This is available, as I said, to businesses, to individual citizens, civic associations, HOAs. And there are 7 different, 8 now, different practices. This is a rebate. So what you have to do is you go online. The Chesapeake Bay Trust does manage this for us. You go online, you make an application. It's okay if you're not sure what practices you want to do, what changes you want to make in your yard that will help soak up that water. They will help you figure it out. But you go online, you make an application, they do a site visit, and then kind of hone in on what your project is. Once your project is approved, then you go forward, you put it in. There's another inspection to make sure it went in right. You know, when we first opened this program, we had a gentleman who put in an application to put a cistern, right, 200 gallons of water on his back porch. And we're like, shoot, you must have an amazing back porch. I mean, you know, a gallon of water weighs 8 pounds, so 200 gallons. It's got to be an awesome porch. So we want to make sure the projects are successful. So there's a site visit, then you submit your receipts and you get your rebate back. I want to, of course, focus on the trees. Trees are one of the programs. You can get $150 per tree. Tree has to be at least 5 feet tall, has to be a native tree. Or it could be a 1/2-inch caliper. There's different ways of measuring it. Now, one of the things that we are actually trying to encourage people to do is the cisterns. Rain barrels are nice, but I don't know, does anybody here have a rain barrel? Yeah. The problem with the rain barrel is in the time it takes you to say, Penny, it's raining, your rain barrel's full. So it doesn't really capture that much water. You could have them at multiple downspouts, you can chain them together, but we really do hope that people will look into cisterns. And there's something now called the smart cistern. The problem with rain barrels and cisterns are you have to empty them out, right? So they're ready for the next rain. And thing in your life to manage. The smart cistern checks in with the weather report, knows that it's time, more rain is coming, slowly let the water trickle out so there's room to catch it. Okay, and this I'm just really excited about. We are adding a new practice to rain check rebate, and that's conservation landscaping. I can't tell you how long I've been waiting for this. This is, but we are doing it a little bit differently. You know, other jurisdictions in the area also have this as a practice, but we're kind of leapfrogging ahead to make it much more climate friendly. Now, what is conservation landscaping? Simply put, it's when you're gardening, you're working with nature. It's always easiest to work with Mother Nature, not to try to force things to go a different way. So it's a more naturalistic style. It's using a lot of native plants. It's being sure that the soil is always covered through the seasons, providing habitat, supporting the pollinators. We don't get out there this time of year and clean everything out of the garden, because where are the bumblebees going to hibernate? Right? Where are the native stingless bees going to lay their eggs? Right? We take all that stuff away. where are the goldfinches going to get seed to eat through the winter? So it's a different way of managing, but again, it can be very beautiful. You know, I tell you, I can hardly think of times I've been happier than when I'm sitting in my garden watching a hummingbird that's like 4 feet away from me, drinking from a flower and doesn't care if I'm there. I mean, that is a joy I wish everybody to have. So, conservation landscaping. You might not have thought about it, but that is a climate resilience practice. Now, this is a picture of the Virginia Science Museum. So this is how we normally see it. In the summertime, I don't have to tell you that pavement is hot, those cars are hot. But and the trees will be cooler, right? We all know that. But what's really interesting, I'm going to show you an infrared photo overlay. Now I want you to keep your eyes. Oh, no, there, I was afraid of that. Let's go back one. If you can keep, yeah, this doesn't show up on the TV, sorry. Keep your eyes on the upper left corner where there's a planting in front of that big tree. And then also look at that big swath of grass next to the paving. All right. See how that grass is almost as hot as the concrete? That's because grass has very shallow roots. Like the best grass on a golf course has at best 6 inches of roots. That's not enough to really provide a lot of cooling. The trees, of course, look dark, but that strip of landscaping I asked you to look at, that's a native landscape. It's not very tall, but it is as dark as the tree. Why? Because those native plants have roots, some of which go down more than 10 feet. So it's really moving a lot more water. It's providing a lot more surface cooling. So as our climate is changing, these things are becoming more and more important. You're going to have a pretty little flower garden, right, in front of your house or in front of a building like this anyway. Why not make it one that's going to provide all of these additional benefits? So we do have a few requirements that we're going to have on this, and one is you can't have your garden in the county right of way. Municipality, y'all decide for yourself about your own right of way. But in the county, you can't have a garden out there because that belongs to the Department of Public Works and Transportation. They can go in there at any time, dig stuff up. You don't want to lose your plants. To also separate out that space, and also to help neighbors who may not be really comfortable yet with this style of gardening. If you have it in the front, make sure you have some kind of a border around it. It could be one of those little decorative things that you buy at the home store. It could be a mowed strip. It could be a little fence, whatever suits your style, whatever you like. And we want you to have those native plants in there and keep that soil covered through the year. And just maintain it. There are a few little tricks to how you maintain it so that you don't cause more problems. Right? There's certain pesticides you want to stay away from, things like that. Not as hard as it sounds. A great alternative to do for this is meadows. I love the trees, you know, all honor to the tree spirits, but meadows are also very useful and important. They're just as good at building soil and sequestering carbon. And they can take a space, a fairly large space or a small space, and it becomes a community of plants that you manage together, rather than in a typical garden where, you know, I'm taking care of this bee balm here and I'm individually looking at this coneflower over here. Just like you manage a lawn as a lawn and not as individual plants of grass, a meadow you manage as kind of a unity. Now, I know that you can't read that, but y'all can go back later and look at the details. It's a lot cheaper than grass. Costs more to get it established. You know, I always like to say that lawns are the landscape equivalent of the builder's cheap beige carpeting that they put in a new house, right? It's cheap and easy to put down, and then you get a lifetime of maintenance. Lawns are kind of like that. Meadows take maintenance, but not as much, and it's much cheaper over time. And, you know, this is actually some statistics from the Maryland State Highway Manual, so it's not just me saying that. We're also looking for opportunities with this rebate for landscape restoration, taking areas, large areas that are grass for no particular reason. You have grass for the kids to play on, great, go for it. Picnicking ground, great, fine. But if it's just there because nobody really thought about what else could be there, maybe it's a good candidate to transition over time, either back to a meadow or back to a forest. And we want to help with that. Now, another thread in the climate plan is safe, healthy foodways, access to healthy foods, equitable access. We all learned in the early stage of the pandemic the danger of having all of our food come from all around the world, right? The supply chain suddenly became a big issue. The food, when it's locally produced, we're getting it when it's fresher, it's got more nutrients. You know, that's going to continue to be an issue. Just think what has happened in this last year, where there's been extreme heat and earthquakes and tornadoes and you name it. And when that hits agricultural areas far away that we depend on, we feel the impact. So it's good to have resilience from local production. It also gives us environmental benefits. People aren't driving all that stuff all over the world, flying it all over the world. There's less need for, you know, preservatives, chemicals. It just makes a lot of sense. And if we're buying local food from local people, we're kind of keeping the money going in the local economy. So this is one of the things we're doing a little differently than other communities' conservation landscaping. We're also having an edible conservation landscaping. Now, there are a lot of nice native plants. Who loves blueberries, right? Yeah. But for this, you can have your tomatoes too, right? You can have your corn. We will help pay for that. We're just going to ask you to do a little more for Mother Nature at the same time, right? We're going to ask you to plant some native pollinator plants. We're going to ask you to maybe do perennial cropping or have a cover crop or, you know, use some leaves to mulch your garden so that that soil is covered all year round. And for both this and the regular conservation landscape, we want you to use what they call regenerative practices. So we're not getting in there and digging up the soil to 3 feet down, and frankly, it's just a ridiculous amount of work. Who wants to do work you don't have to do? But on top of it, it releases carbon back into the air and it kills off the soil life. So this is some of these practices we were raised as this is the way to do it, come down to what I like to call old husband's tales. Right? It's the way it used to be done. That doesn't mean it's the right way. That doesn't mean it's the best way. We learn, we progress. And so we know now that kind of that no-till approach that we ask our farmers to do to help the bay, we need to do that in our own yards as well. One other program that we have that I'm excited about, it's new. And should be starting up pretty soon. We were fortunate to get a grant from the Department of Agriculture for climate-ready commodities. And that program, the Department of the Environment is going to be making grants to folks that want to get into agriculture. Urban agriculture, micro farms. You know, you can, on a small plot of land, actually make some money, grow some products. Helping to diversify the community of agriculture that we have in the county. And, you know, I mean, it could be herbs, maybe you sell herbal teas, whatever. There's a lot of different kinds of things that people can do. But they need a little help to make that jump. We're going to be working with some great partners on this program. We're going to be working with a soil conservation district that actually has an urban agriculture agent who can help people plan that and figure it out, and the Food Equity Council as well. Because this kind of thing, whether you're selling for money or whether you're growing your own food, is key, because everyone in this county does not have equal access to fresh local food, right? There are a lot of communities that do not have supermarkets or farmers markets. You know, they're stuck with convenience stores. And even if you do have access to those, how much better? Maybe you live in an apartment, you can't garden, but here's a way that you can access that. So that is not all our programs, but I tried to cherry pick ones that I thought might be most useful for you or of greatest interest to fold in with what you're already doing with sustainability and the kinds of resilience that you've been looking at through this program. So, questions, thoughts, ideas? Yes, sir.
When you talk about the planting shrubs, for example, you should look at planting using something that's going to grow at least 6 inches or more in the ground to get the.
Most shrubs are going to have a better root system than that grass does.
Okay.
And they're also, we have a lot of just amazing, beautiful native shrubs. There's, we're very lucky here because we kind of have the crossover of southern plants and northern plants. And so we have a lot to choose from. Just that a little to our change in climate. Maybe we're going to go a little more southern than we're used to in the past. But right now is, by the way, just a perfect time to be planted, particularly for shrubs and trees. Soil's moist, the weather's cool, but the soil is still warm. So that's like perfect happy time. Are there other questions? Yes.
What do you really consider a meadow as meadow? Is it like mere water? Is it just really high bushes? I mean,
So a meadow is a community of plants. It's mainly what you would think of as ornamental grasses, right? Taller grasses.
Right.
But there are different kinds that you can choose, right? There's big blue stem, which is as tall as me or taller. There's a little blue stem that's like 18 inches tall. So if you have a small yard and you want to do a small urban meadow, you don't have to choose the big stuff. But the idea is that you have kind of a network or a matrix of these grass plants, and then you have native flower plants as well. And they knit together. The reason that they provide so many benefits is you have layers, taller plants, medium plants, smaller plants, and underground you have deep roots, spreading roots, thick roots. So all of that knits together and becomes very strong. And it's perfect for pollinators and birds and butterflies. And unlike your lawn, you mow it once a year. And you're not,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
So you have the plants, they're perennial, they're coming back every year. It does take a couple of years to develop. You start with some short-lived nurse plants that kind of pave the way. And then the plants that take a couple of years to get going have a nice environment to get going in. So it's not like you have to plant it every year,
Right.
right? You plant it. The first group of plants comes up and is happy, then the next group, and then you get to the long-lived ones that will stay. The only reason you have to mow it is because mostly in this area, if you don't, it will eventually become a forest.
Right.
So if you want to keep it as a meadow, you have to mow it once a year. So, but just if you want to do that, don't be going out and buying meadow in a can. You need to have the native plants that are from this area, and you need to have a right mix of plants. A lot of people plant all flowers, and the flowers bloom and then they die and then they're unhappy because they don't know that they have to have those grass plants
Right.
to be the, the matrix that those other plants are in. But it can knock you over with how pretty it is when the flowers are blooming. And most of these grasses have good fall color
Mhm.
and interesting seeds as well. So it takes a little bit more research, but we can connect you with resources and people that know how to do that.
Well, of course, if I'm pronouncing it right, the citron versus the rainbow.
Cistern,
Citrus, okay.
yeah.
Yes. I saw the picture, but I've never heard of that. Where could you purchase that from and how does it actually work? I know you said when it fills up with
Yeah.
water and it knows it's gonna rain again, it will allow water to drain out.
So a
Right.
basic cistern is just kind of like a really large rain barrel,
Mhm.
right? And there are lots of different styles and designs. The one I showed there, there's actually a version of that that can fit on your outside wall. So it doesn't take up a lot of yard space. But if you go online and search cisterns, you're just going to get page after page after page. There's a lot of different kinds. The smart cistern just basically has some electronics hooked up to plumbing. So whatever your cistern is, if you put that plumbing in, you could then add the electronic part that checks the weather and tells it. So it's not like you have to necessarily buy one particular type. Am I making this more confusing? I have a feeling.
You can also leave the hose open and it'll just,
But yeah, do go online and search because they look very different. Some of them are like real practical, not that interesting or appealing looking as garden decor. And some of them look like, cute little silos or old fashioned water tanks, or some of them are just unobtrusive and fit right on your wall and kind of blend into the house. So it just really depends on what you're looking for.
Since we're on the topic, my challenge was that they're all kind of made in Idaho and I felt bad shipping this nice green product 2,000 miles to get it here. Do you have anyone local? You don't have to recommend them, just, is there a list?
I do not know of a local manufacturer, but boy, would that be a wonderful business for somebody to start up here because I think there would be a lot of interest in it. I really do. So, any business types, file that away with them.
So does anybody else, any other questions?
Yes.
Not, Carol, is the county still giving you credit on your, stormwater fee if you install a rain barrel or you install, a pervious pavement, or if you do the conservation landscaping off of your deal?
Yes, so if you participate in the rain check rebate, you do get a reduction in your clean water fee. And I do need to say the conservation landscaping is still coming soon. When you're in government, there are processes. So it's going through, council approved it. Now, we wrote some regulations, those are going through the process of being approved. And once we've checked all those boxes, then you'll be able to actually apply. But go ahead if that's what you're interested in and go on the CBT site, because we are keeping all of those folks that are interested so that we have a head start on it. So if the incident goes live, we can send the word out. So, you know, you have to replace invasives or lawn with the conservation landscaping, right? Because we're trying to improve the landscape. So now is a good time if you want to start killing that lawn, killing those invasives. You know, you can do some sheet composting, get it all nice and ready, and then get your ideas and plans in order. And then when we're ready, we'll be ready.
So another thing and suggestions for the communities is when Carole is talking about meadow, I immediately thought about Trinidad.
No, I get you.
You have this area that has all of these invasive grasses there. But if the community comes together, gets the funding from the Department of Environment, you can plant a meadow that would be something that you don't have to maintain, and something that is it is controlled. Grasses and the flowers are controlled. Once a year you have somebody cut it down, and the next year it comes back. When you talk about the pollinators, when you're talking about down by the well and planting down there, or even the stairs that are going up off of Hawkins, that would be great places that you can do pollinator gardens. And you can get funding from the county, and you can get assistance from the county and their partners to be able to do this, and it wouldn't cost the town anything. One of the things that she mentioned that I immediately thought about, y'all have lots of poison ivy. Lots of poison ivy that are killing trees. And you have other invasive vines that are killing large trees. You get trees that are falling off. Really, the reason why they're, it's because you have these invasive plants that are choking the life out of them, because that's what those invasive plants do. They wrap around and they suck the life out of the tree like a leech. And so if you have
If you have an understory, and if you start to plant those native shrubs, normally a forest it's got the tall trees, it's got smaller trees, it's got some shrubs, and then it has the earth ground cover, right? The ferns and the things like that. Between the deer and the invasives, most of our woodlands don't have that. And so the little baby trees can't grow and come back up and replace the old ones. And people look at that mess of vines and stuff and think, like, I don't want to go in there. You know, but you actually, if it's a public space, you can go from like 20% visibility to 80% visibility just by controlling those invasives and putting it back into a more natural form. And it will be much healthier.
and there's trainings. There's training. I know that Hyattsville has a person that once a month or once every 6 weeks does training in invasive urine. Tom. Just did some invasive removing, and I'm sure that he could be very helpful in being able to find a pot of money to train, you know, those interesting people to come and remove a lot of this invasive that you have. But I just lots of thoughts of how the community and the town can benefit from a lot of these projects. And even though you can't get, I think one time when they first started the clean water fee, I asked, can we ever get down to zero? And they said, no, can't ever get down to zero. But you can get it down to like $25, and you say, well, $25 is not a lot of them, you're only paying $50 a year. But $25 over a period of time is $25. For 2 years, so $50. So, you're helping the environment, you're helping the pocket, there's programs out here. You don't have to spend your money to do it. You can live anywhere, so it doesn't have to necessarily be here in Eagle Harbor, because I know a lot of you live other places. So, you have the programs that you can do in your community where you live. And for those people that live in DC, DC has these programs because DC had the programs before Prince George County had the programs. So when Prince George County began doing the rain check rebate, I was very just enthusiastic because it was mirroring some of the things that DC was already doing. So the people who live in DC check with DC and they have the same things. They'll come out, they'll look at your property, they'll give you ideas, and they'll provide grants for you. Their waiting list is a lot longer. They've been in business a lot longer.
Does anyone participate here? Because I have, just if anyone has questions, is what's it like to be a homeowner and do this? I live in College Park.
So come share with.
It's good. Cash, it's heavy now. But, so the way it works, the application is really straightforward, so don't be scared of that. I think it's 2 pages or something like that. I do kind of have experience in this field, so I felt comfortable filling in the blanks, but the truth is if I was gonna put a green roof on my shed, I have a pretty large shed. It didn't really become cost effective, and that's a more complicated story, but they kind of just said you could do a small rain garden instead. And then you kind of can decide what's worth it to you. The cistern, as they said, if you pictured one of us big boys standing up, that's about the size of it. It's about 6 feet
Yeah.
tall and it's round. It can get pretty heavy, but that's straightforward. I think that's just what $2 a gallon or something
Yeah.
like that. So I think they run about $600. You'll get about a $600 rebate. So really, you're just paying for the shipping and handling of it. And you have someone install it, and you just put your gutter down to it. The roof instead, I didn't do that, but I think also I have a year to do
Yeah.
this, right? I just want to let people know, like, you don't have to do this Thursday. You have.
And
a
you,
lot of
and you
time.
don't have to do everything all at once. I mean, you can do a combination of practices up to $6,000 for your residential property, any combination. It could be all trees, it could be a cistern, it could be a tree, but you don't have to do it all at once. You can do it as you can bite it off and handle it. And this is not one of those grant programs where you don't cross them to your dot an I and denied. No, they're going to work with you and figure out how to make it a successful project because we frankly want to spend the money and we want to get this stuff out landscape.
They did come to my house too, just in case, and just, hey, what are you doing? Blah, blah, well, this and that. And then it was a thoughtful exchange. It wasn't someone telling me what not to do or what I had to do. And there was flexibility that way. So I think it worked out well.
And as Jackie said, that some of you live other places as well. We do have some other programs that I didn't really cover tonight. We have an urban tree grant. For example, in some of the more developed areas of the county. And there we will actually pay for the tree outright and we'll even plant it. Because those are the areas that have such little canopy. There are some of our more urbanized communities that have 8, 10, 20% canopy. Which is, it's just not sustainable for people in the long term.
Carole, not to put you on the spot, but as a municipality, they have a much higher limit, don't they? If the town itself was applying to the program through a nonprofit.
Yes, if a nonprofit applies or for a business, it's 20,000. Yeah.
Hint, hint, elected official. I don't know who's the elected official.
And depending on the size of the project too, there's also the stormwater stewardship grants. They're not just for outreach. There's water quality ones where you can do like a big rain garden or whatever. And there's no reason you can't tap into different programs. What I've done with some of the other municipalities is that they have gotten a stewardship grant to plant trees. And I've come and said, wait, don't spend that money on your right-of-way trees in the municipality, because I can help you with that through tree relief. So then that makes the other money go farther. So we're really just trying to get this stuff practical and doable and approachable. So, you know, you let us know what else we can do.
Yes, on your metals, that's what we're talking about, speaking about. Let's say a low burn metal with different tiers. You said you would help, be able to give a help to design area such as that.
Yeah, there's, we can point you to resources.
Yeah,
And we're very fortunate in this area. We do have a number of local experts. And although I'm not officially allowed to recommend particular people,
right,
that you can choose from and get, and it is important, because I don't want you to be led astray or have an issue or have it not work. And like those meadows in a can don't work. Sometimes you'll read things about meadows that are written for the Midwest. It's like, just not work here. We're on a whole different seasonal cycle than they are.
Or you are talking bigger numbers, though. I think where she's going, there's a number of programs that the town could chase here to
Yeah.
develop natural resources.
And Jackie, I could just see that when you said it on the point. I mean, I can just see the birds already coming in there, a flock of goldfinches just wheeling around, enjoying those seeds.
And
Gorgeous.
Carole was absolutely right. I did a conservation landscaping when we did the community, the town hall grounds. And I did for the mayor's, right where the mayor's was, I did conservation landscaping. And I put a bench out there because I like to be outdoors. And I would sit out there and it was just simply unbelievable. The goldfinch would come and eat off the seeds. The hummingbirds, like Carole said, they would just come. The bees kind of like I didn't like them, but I feel like it bothered them. They wasn't gonna bother me. But it is just to be able to just sit in a garden and watch nature. One of the things that I have become very aware of this year is how many people have seen butterflies this year?
not really, not a lot, not many.
And you remember, there used to be lots and lots of butterflies. And the reason why is we don't have butterflies, we don't have bees, we don't have those. It's because we're spraying for mosquitoes and they, instead of killing the mosquitoes, we're killing all of the things like the butterflies and the bees that really are helping us. Because if you don't have butterflies and bees, how many people plant tomatoes and gardens, and then you don't get anything. And the reason why is because the pollinators are all dead. And so they can't pollinate your plants. So all of these things sort of work together. And if we help bring them back, then that's part of the climate change that we can just do our little tiny part in our little tiny area. So are there any more questions for Carole? Yes.
To our virtual audience, are there any questions? Who is iPhone? You didn't list your name, so I can't identify you. So if you can type your name in the chat, we would appreciate it.
And
Why
well,
are we doing that? Hummingbird, that's one of my favorite birds. And my wife used to plant a 4-hour plant on our deck.
Mhm.
It attracted the hummingbird. Are there other types of plants or flowers?
Oh, yeah.
attract
Well, see, now you
hummingbirds?
can plant the native plants that attract them and they will come back every year.
Mhm.
Cardinal flower, beautiful scarlet blossoms. Man, they're popping up in my lawn. They're not a hard plant to take care of. Bee balm is another one. Basically, they like red tubular flowers are their favorites. And yeah, they'll work a flower right close to you. Bumblebees, you know, a lot of most of our native bees don't actually sting. and you can watch them work the flower. I even pet them with these.
Please go ahead on, girl.
So, yeah.
Okay, but we've reached 7:30 and reached the end of our 6th workshop. There was another gentleman who is a urban, what is he, urban agriculturist. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring him, but if you would like him to come and talk to you guys about doing an urban planting or a fruit tree planting is one of the things that he loves. Because you have planting that you're going to be doing at Coleman Creek, and that would be an excellent area to plant trees that are fruit bearing. And then you guys can just go out there and get the fruit, and what you don't eat, then nature will take care of it.
Mhm.
You know, like the fig tree that my husband has planted in Florida. Nature does more than we do. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you all for.
Thank you for joining the Town of Eagle Harbor's workshop series. Please join us on our YouTube channel to watch our previous workshops. Thank you.